Good morning, fellows of the Academy, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to today's all-important program. We are about to start, and I beg of you to please put your phones on silent or vibration before we start, please. Once again, good morning, and you are welcome to the public launch of the GAAS project on motivating higher education reforms in Ghana towards equity and sustainability 2022 to 2024. I'm Clifford Nikwe Afaditete, the Communications Officer of the Academy. And as we start the program, I would like to please call on Professor Clifford Niboy-Tego, who is the chair of the steering committee, to give a brief remarks. Shall we please welcome him with a clap of hands?
Some of us are a little challenged in height. Good morning. The president of the Academy, Professor Samuel Sefa Dede, past presidents, vice presidents and past vice presidents here present, fellows of the Academy, our friends from the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Academy of Arts and Sciences, Ghana's premier learned society, I warmly welcome you all to this morning's event. The Academy was established in 1959 by an Act of Parliament to promote the study, extension, and dissemination of knowledge in the arts and sciences. This mandate is fulfilled through public engagements throughout the year, as well as the awards of prizes for academic excellence. The Academy's major activities are the J.B. Dankwa Memorial Lectures, the Public Fora, annual lectures in the arts and sciences, and the Founders Week lectures, which take place every year, and in the months of February, April, June, October, and November, respectively. In the 1962 address, the Academy's president at the time, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, admonished the Academy to, and I quote, "break free from the narrow limits of your own fields of specialization and discuss problems of general interest in terms that are intelligible to the non-specialist." He further went on and expressed the hope that only to that extent that scholars and scientists in Ghana are able to do this, can they effectively assist in the solution of the many urgent problems that confront the nation, unquote. Happily, in 1967, the then Academy of Sciences, with support from the Ford Foundation, published 3 volumes entitled A Study of Contemporary Ghana, directed and edited by Walter Birmingham, I. Neustadt, and E.N. Omabo. In those volumes, the authors made it clear that the publication had not been produced as specialist monographs. Rather, careful attention had been given to explaining most of the technical terms with a view to presenting the work as a reference for public servants, university staff and students, teachers in training colleges, and in their senior years of secondary school. Those were the days when the Academy did not want for funding and sponsored many highly relevant research activities in all the 10 research institutions and 4 units and projects it was responsible for at the time. Let me explain this, that in the beginning it was, I think, Academy of Sciences, Learning, and then Academy of Sciences. At some point, there was reorganization. Then the Academy was separated from what is now known as the Council for Scientific Research in Scientific and Industrial Research. I have a long association with a Center for Plant Medicine Research. So anytime I say Council for Scientific, that's what comes instead of CSIR. So over time, however, the low levels of public investment and support to knowledge-producing institutions such as ours has hampered our ability to continue to commission such important work and blunted our effectiveness and ability to disseminate research findings to influence policy and shape public education. That notwithstanding, ladies and gentlemen, we have not rested on our oars and have leveraged our convening power to assemble learned teams and panels on critical issues in the arts and sciences at public lectures, symposia, and fora that we regularly organize. In line with our vision of helping find solutions to national problems, and thankfully, with funding from the GAAS Foundation through the U.S. National Academy of Sciences support to strengthen the ability of African academies to inform government policy making and public discourse with independent, evidence-based advice, the Academy commissioned and published Generating Electricity from Sunlight, Global Trends and Developments in Ghana, authored by Professor Fred Ohini-Akufo at the onset of what has now been infamously named Doomsor. We are delighted that 15 years on, we can commission another important piece of research work with huge national ramifications. Thanks to the Carnegie Corporation of New York, New York's approval of a grant in the sum of $116,000 US. How much is that in cedis now? For a project designed to gather evidence, share information, and provide a platform for building consensus and contributing to policy formation on higher education in Ghana. Indeed, the Academy's strategic plan 2020 to 2025 aims, inter alia, to make it the institution of choice that empowers Ghanaians with transformative 21st century skills and knowledge through thought leadership by deepening the Academy's involvement in the discourse of important national issues and prioritizing communication as an enabler in its value chain. With the Academy's composition of fellows from diverse academic and professional backgrounds, and abounding capacity to share public knowledge on diverse topics, we aspire to become a trusted go-to source for relevant parliamentary committees and indeed the presidency for expeditious policy opinion, advice, and forward-looking scans and analysis in response to demand or in anticipation of future needs. We are hopeful that the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, under which the Academy is placed for subvention purposes, would buy into this vision and provide the necessary support and encouragement for the fulfillment of our mission. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, with these few words, I welcome all of you to the public launch of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences project, moving higher education reforms in Ghana, motivating higher education reforms in Ghana towards equity and sustainability over the period 2020 to 2024. I thank you all for your attention. I would now, with your permission, Mr. President, invite the chairperson of the Project Management Committee, Emerita Professor Techua Menu, to tell you about the project. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I stand on the previous protocol. I will only want to include fellows of the Academy who are watching us online and to thank them for their time. So you've been told about the Academy and its mission, which is to encourage the creation, acquisition, dissemination, and utilization of knowledge for national development through the promotion of learning. And you've also been told a little about this grant. So I want to just give you a bit about why we are doing this project. So we know that over the years, there have been several studies that have been undertaken to shed light on the problems and outcomes of policies and reforms within the education sector generally and within the higher education sector specifically. However, we also note that there is the absence of a platform for independent persons and groups to reflect on the challenges of the higher education sector on a regular and sustained basis. There is also a dearth of arrangements for providing a sounding board for different stakeholders and for undertaking regular reviews of current policies. Often we hear that some policy has been announced, but we never really get to understand how it has been formulated or debated. And there is often no independent research evidence to inform both current and new policy considerations. So it is with all of this in mind and with a specific attention to what has happened in the higher education sector over the last 2 decades, for instance. We know that there has been a rapid expansion of universities, especially public universities, and intake without the requisite growth or expansion in infrastructure. And what has happened is that there has been significant overcrowding of teaching and learning facilities. There has been unplanned and inadequate investment in infrastructural development. Many of our faculty are aging, and there is inadequate staff development. I think that nationally there is a concern about poor learning outcomes because of all the above things that I have noted. And from time to time, we hear of complaints about the employability of students. We also have weak research cultures and inadequate research funding and infrastructure for research. And we also have weak governance, especially at many public universities. Now, we are not suggesting that nothing has been done about these issues, but we're saying that they have not been enough, and especially that there has been no platform independent of sporadic government consultations for engaging with such issues. So this is what led to the formulation of this project, which aims to create the conditions for better understanding of the policy drivers for addressing some of the significant problems in the higher education sector. And the objectives of the project are specifically to critically examine past, present, and future planned reforms in the higher education sector, to offer a platform for open and objective discussion of higher education policy, and to build or attempt to build consensus around policy recommendations that promote equity and sustainability in the higher education sector. So this is really why we have invited different stakeholders in the higher education sector this morning. And as the chairman stated, we have received just under $120,000 from Carnegie Corporation of New York as an initial grant to conduct a number of activities. So these activities include a comprehensive mapping of higher education policy changes or interventions since 1992 and other proposed reforms. But we are not saying that this has not been done, but we see a significant difference in what we will do. And we will focus on commissioning studies and background papers on selected higher education policy changes. We intend to organize regular policy convenings based on the commission papers for selected stakeholders. We will also organize an international conference on motivating on the topic on the theme of the project with higher education scholars, actors, and policymakers. And we will publish and share the commission studies and the conference outcomes. We will also issue policy briefs which will come from the policy convenings. So we have a number of themes that we will be covering in these policy convenings. The first policy dialogue that we hope to organize will be on managing public universities in a new age. We know that things are changing. The COVID-19 pandemic brought to the fore some of the challenges, and we know that there have been also continuing evolution in the universities themselves. So how do we manage public universities in a new and challenging age? Our second policy dialogue will focus on what we have seen, the expanded public university space and the effect that it has had on access, quality, sustainability, and other issues. Then, especially with public universities, but also with all universities, we will also focus on the changing relationship between the state and universities in Ghana. A significant issue is the recent conversion of polytechnics to technical universities, and we will devote one of our policy convenings to this. We also know that in the past 30 years, private universities have emerged on the stage, and they keep coming. And it has, they have expanded the space, but they also introduce new dynamics, So we will have a dialogue which will look at private universities in Ghana. And then the recurrent issue of financing. How do we finance higher education? What are the implications for equity and sustainability? And then our last policy dialogue will focus specifically on the GET Fund, which was established for a specific purpose. In fact, I note that the Africa Education Watch has just submitted in today's papers a brief on the allocations to GET Fund in the 2023 budget and how the issues about what is collected for the GET Fund and how it gets allocated. So how do we make the GET Fund fit for purpose? So these are some of the themes that we will be addressing. We have issued a call for expressions of interest to scholars and practitioners in the higher education space, setting out explaining the modalities. And these will be the papers that will form the basis for the policy dialogue. We are aware that many people, more than when we think about universities, maybe we immediately think of lecturers and staff in the universities. But the stakeholders that we envision joining us to discuss these issues include the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, of course, the Ministry of Education, the Vice Chancellor's Ghana, University Teachers Association, Technical Teachers Association of Ghana, the National Union of Ghana Students, the Graduate Students Association of Ghana, the Fair Wages and Salary Commission, the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education, representatives from public and private higher education institutions, selected employer associations, the Ghana Employers Association, and selected NGOs who work on education and related matters. So there is a project committee. We have a project steering committee, which is chaired by our chairperson today, Professor Clifford Tego, and it includes Professor Akila Pasoya, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyemang, Professor James Hawkins Ephraim, Professor Ernest Aite, Professor Ernest Emma Mama Ntiamensa, Emeritus Professor Samuel Sefadede, Emerita Professor Isabella Kwachi, and Professor Kofi Opokunti, all fellows of the Academy. And then there is a project management team convened by myself with Professor Georgie Chikata, Professor John Japon, Professor Kaku Sakari Noko, and Mr. Francis Ankra, and Mr. Charles Ansre, and Mrs. Mispa Mama to assist us. So this is the project, and these are the activities that we envisage. We have a work plan detailing the different activities that will be conducted over the course of 2023, 2024, with a final report to Carnegie early in 2025. And we hope that they will be so satisfied with it that they will give us another grant to continue. So I'm very pleased that you have been able to join us this morning. And I'd like to hand over to our chair to formally launch the project. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Emerita Professor Techua Menu, for the very clear delivery of the details of the project. I have no doubt that we all agree that the research topics and themes presented are issues germane to the development of this dear country of ours. We should all therefore eagerly await the outcomes of these research activities. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my singular honor to declare the project Motivating Higher Education Reforms in Ghana Towards Equity and Sustainability duly launched. It is now time for questions from all of you. I've already told Emerita Professor Tichua Menu that being the project team leader, she is going to answer all the questions. Thank you very much.
In the meantime, can I formally recognize Dr. Yaira Drakaji, Director of Tertiary Education at the Ministry of Education. Thank you for representing the ministry. So please, if you have any questions, comments, requests for information, clarification. Yes, madam. I think they are
Please hold on.
So the report.
Please introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Dr. Sosei Safo, University of Ghana. The report for this project is expected to be ready in 2025. So I'm wondering, in the interim, what happens with the issues that we know are grappling education?
If I could take a few more questions. But let me say that that report I referred to was the final report to the Carnegie Corporation. So we will have these quarterly convenings. The first one should have been like in January, February. It's a bit early for us, so we've planned the first convening in March 2023. So that creates a forum to discuss the issues and based on the commission papers that will guide us. At the end of each convening, we will issue a policy brief. So if you like, that is a report that will contain policy recommendations from the stakeholders that will then be directed, to the appropriate agencies, whether it's the Ministry of Education, whether it's the universities themselves, whatever. So we're not waiting till 2025. We have, when you get a grant, you have the periodic reportings. So we have to report to Carnegie in February 2023, another report in 2024, and then the final report is in 2025. That was what I was referring to. But after each of the 7 convenings, there will be a policy brief that sums up, the critical issues that were discussed and the recommendations that were made. Then there will also be the international conference late in 2024, which will be published. There will be a proceedings. So if you like, there are several outputs, and the reports are activity reports to the funder. But then we've got the policy, we've got the commission papers, we've got the policy briefs, and then we've got the proceedings of the conference. So those are all major outputs. But we consider that the policy briefs are really very relevant because they will be summaries of the key issues, easily digestible by policymakers, and practitioners, people who actually work in the field and know what some of the issues are. And this is what other practitioners are coming with, because we are saying that one of the critical, what shall I say, of this project is offering this platform, for debate and discussion, so that policy is informed by these opinions and experts' advice based on studies. It's not just, I feel like, not conjecture, but based on studies and expert opinion. Yes.
Please, there's a question here.
No. Where?
Okay.
Oh. Yes, sir.
Okay, Dr. Samuel Tenge, Bank of Ghana. My question, I have two broad questions. The first one relates to the sustainability of this project. Clearly, this is a project with a start time and an end time or date. Is there any intention or plan to sustain this? And of course, I've seen there will be a conference and there will be a publication. Are you intending that there will be conferences and there will be a journal, for example, motivating maybe higher education reforms, that becomes a platform for constant engagement in matters like this? Is there a plan like that? That's my first set of questions. The second one relates to a casual reference you made to employability of the outputs of the graduates of our higher education system. And employability throws up a number of issues. First and foremost, is it that the skills that the knowledge that they have is not appropriate to be employed, or is it that there are too many of them as against demand for them? So it's not just about the inappropriateness of the skills, but it is that supply outstrip demand. So with that as a backdrop, I was expecting that the themes you laid out for the research papers will be seeking to address some of the issues. Is there a way to propose that there be some kind of regulation so that we would determine what kinds of programs should be pursued by universities in which sectors, and if there is funding, which of them should be funded as a way of dealing with this, unemployability. Okay, so that's it's a bit complicated, but I hope you make sense of what I was trying to convey. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Tenge, and I'm very pleased that we have a representative from the Bank of Ghana here. In fact, we want this platform to be as broad and to include as many stakeholders. As I said, often when we hear higher education, we just think of the teachers and the administrators, but we may not necessarily think of the different stakeholders who are implicated in what we're doing. So, yes, as you said, it's a project. It has a beginning and an end. But we are hoping, first of all, that this is our first formal application as an academy to Carnegie Corporation. Carnegie Corporation tends to be supportive if you deliver good results. So we expect that the relationship that we are building will be sustained. However, and we are conscious of our president saying yesterday that we shouldn't be begging. So we really want to build sustainability nationally with institutions such as the Bank of Ghana. We know that you already do a lot, but you can do more. And we really want this sustainability. So I like very much this idea of this platform, and especially now, virtually you can build all kinds of platforms, You can also do the paper format, but you can also build that. But it still has to be sustained. So we would very much be interested in, even with this project, it's a very bare bones project because we are on a very tight leash, and the academy is supposed to provide the premises and the personnel free of charge. All of us, even our fuel to any activities, is not in any project funds. So we will welcome, support from different channels. But indeed, I think that what you raise is very interesting. There may be, I know that in the institutes of education in different universities, there may be journals, but there is not a kind of a national journal of higher education that is raising issues that, Prof. Japa, am I right? Yes, that, people can contribute to, and, so that is clearly an output that we may not have envisaged, but that we can develop, out of all those policy briefs and other things, On the issue of employability, we linked it to the issues of this rapid expansion, the inadequate investment in infrastructure, aging faculty. For instance, we know that private universities depend very much on existing faculty in existing public universities. And the professoriate or the general age of faculty is high. In fact, Carnegie Corporation commissioned a study with the Association of African Universities on this very topic. And we know that the average age is about 50, which is quite high. So even though there are attempts to train new cadres of lecturers, etc., it's not keeping pace with the expansions that are taking place. And we still have very large classes, etc. And of course, higher education is terminal. So when the problems show up there, it is as if the problems have been created there. When we have to consider the pipeline, what is happening right from primary school through secondary school. And I'm happy Professor Adamensa is here. He's a working encyclopedia on higher education, even though he's only a chemist. So, yes, I said it deliberately. So we have all these issues, and then it's like, oh, the universities are not doing this, the universities are not doing this. But I'm saying that whatever happens, the same way that in the past the universities managed to, we need to ask ourselves questions about what is happening at each level, and then it gets amplified. At the same time, we also know that we live in a dynamic world. Things are changing, the technologies are changing. Every day we are hearing about artificial intelligence, robotics, fourth industrial, this, etc. So the kinds of skills that were adequate, requisite 2 decades ago may no longer serve, So it is a challenge to all of us. And of course, it's not just the supply side, it's also the demand side. What is also happening with the economy? Where are the sectors that are expanding? Are we getting enough people into those sectors? So I agree with you, it's a big, big debate, but we don't get a chance to talk about it. It's just a complaint, from time to time. How do we debate all of these issues adequately? And it would be fantastic if we got Ghanaian funding to continue this project and to look at, really very specific issues, So if you like, this first one is a big scoping, but we will drill down and get into some of these kinds of issues. So like you say, if we want these kinds of skills, because it's also about planning. Where is the long-term plan that tells us where we are going, what we are going to need, how we should plan for it, how we will fund? So these issues about financing, the issues about equity and sustainability, how do all of these things get in? Are the current modes of financing sufficiently attentive to these kinds of issues? How do we really get into it, to get, so yes, and so it is big, but we are hoping that we provide that platform to raise these issues and beyond the usual suspects. If we are just all in a room talking to ourselves, it doesn't help. But if we also have the employers and the bankers and the financiers and the industry players alongside the regulators, etc., then we are going to really brew a very nice pot of ideas, that present a big menu to policymakers when it comes time to take decisions. Then we know it's informed and it is also premised on some broad national consensus, or at least a consensus of interested and informed stakeholders. So thank you very much. These are very valuable comments. Shall I put the Director of Tertiary Education on the spot? Yeah.
Just a minor issue I want to raise. And even though the chairman has passed the ball to you, I am going to direct it to him because he was the chairman of the then National Council for Tertiary Education when what I'm going to talk about happened. What I've noticed over the years is that usually we go through some of these things. By the time we get to the policy stage, where the government in existence is supposed to make use of whatever has come out of these studies, there is a change of government. And then the new government comes and they forget about it. Let me give 2 examples. We went through a very rigorous and elaborate exercise on differentiation and diversification of tertiary education in the country and came out with a policy document just around the time that 2015, 2016, and then 2017 a new government came, and that was the end of the policy, even though that exercise was led by the National Council for Tertiary Education. Then there was the issue of financing tertiary education in Ghana, which was evolved by a very broad group of people, including the bankers, academia, TUC, the trade unions. You know, again, the document came out during your time, and then a new government came, it died. This project you are starting is from 2022 to 2024. Come January 2025, whether we like it or not, even if it is the same party, there will be a new government. And there is no guarantee that whatever the new government is, whether it's a new party or the same old party with a new set of leaders, it will be a change. What steps are going to be taken to ensure that this time round, whatever comes out as a reasoned policy is implemented as a continuum by whoever takes over the reins of government, so that all these things just don't go to waste?
Thank you.
Sorry, am I supposed to answer that?
Yes.
I would have thought that the Director of Tertiary Education would be the perfect person, but again, you know, at the time that you're referring to, that government change, I also changed. So I also left the council, you know, but they are very, very serious issues indeed. We carried some of that work into a tertiary education dialogue, and we had almost everybody in tertiary education taking part. As a government agency, the NCT or now GTech would write and send the policy briefs to those at the ministry. How they see these things, I don't know. So I believe that sometimes they just might be overwhelmed by the sheer weight of the problems that, and even the solutions that they might not do anything about them. But we carried matters to the appropriate quarters, even to the level of the AU, when I was involved in the organization of the first ever higher education summit in Africa in 2015. meeting in Dakar, opened by President Macky Sall of Senegal, chaired by Mrs. Dlamini, the AU chairperson, commission chairperson, and addressed by Kofi Annan. So these are things that we take to the very highest level to be included, for instance, in the AU Agenda 2063 as a modification of what they had there. But eventually, it is the political will to carry out many of these things. I must say that I experienced a change in the approach of Ministry of Education when we started the current strategic plan, for instance. It was in 2015, 2016, elections and government change. But the Ministry of Education actually carried through the completion of that strategic plan. And based on that, we also did the tertiary education policy for you. Unfortunately, as for the policy is approved. It is the current policy. Its problem was that they changed parts of it that they carried into the public universities draft bill that caused the uproar. And I don't know if it is dead, but it certainly doesn't seem to be breathing. So the bottom line is that the agencies try as much as possible to even disseminate the whatever they have. But the agencies cannot approve the policies themselves. The policy has to be approved by somebody who will then put the wherewithal behind them for implementation. So, as I said, I think that the Director for Tertiary Education is the best person actually to comment on some of the aspects of your question, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I have a number of issues that equated to me to respond to, but I'll try to respond to a few of them, and maybe we see the way forward for the rest. Yes, for equity, yes, we are in for equity, but I wish we add accessibility also to it, because at the tertiary space, one thing we are looking at is the accessibility. The access to tertiary education. There are a couple of issues also there that we think we can also look at. Talking about differentiated learning among others, yes, we have included differentiated learning in most of our curriculum across the universities. So right now at the ministry, we are really talking about UDL, Universal Design for Learning, which talks about different way of learning by the learners. When you look at our college curriculum that we are running now across the country, most of their courses have these aspects of differentiated learning, differentiated assessment, and others are part of it that we expect a teacher trainee completing should be able to know of all these things. Right now, we are focusing much more on 60-40% of science and humanity ratio. So our focus is that the science enrollment in the universities should be 60, and then humanity should be 40. So based on this, we are expecting those who have not studied science at the secondary schools should also be given opportunity to have some aspects of it. So that is how come our pre-engineering program is taking place in 2 universities across the country. We have Pentecost University that we are piloting, and then UMAT. UMAT is also part of it. So currently, as I speak, it's ongoing. Yes, talking about equity, yes. Government is doing all things possible to make tertiary education affordable. So with this, government is coming with the no guarantor policy for both public universities as well as private universities. So that with your Ghana card alone, you are qualified to get loan from the Student Trust Fund. So these are some of the things we are doing. And again, those policies are not thrown away. Almost all of them are being, aspects of them are being implemented day to day in order to enhance the tertiary education space in the country. Yes. So with the team motivating higher education reforms in Ghana towards equity and sustainability, I would have wished that we had access to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, access is at the heart of it. When we talk about expanding universities, it really is about getting more people. So I think that the specific policy forums will go into these themes, but we're talking about the process by which policies get formulated and how inclusive they are, and get different voices in, because I mean, we come with this 60-40. There are many views about the role of the humanities in development, and I think, so what actually has even led our government to take this kind of decision, and I think that these are the broad issues that we want to discuss before we come to some specifics about 60-40 or 70-30. Why 60-40? Why is it not 70-30? Why is it not 80-20? Those kinds of permutations, But clearly, we know systems where people can study anything at undergraduate level, and then when it comes to graduate level, they then go to medical schools and other things. So there are many models, but we want to have some reasoned debate, and also about the infrastructure to support some of these things, And then I'm glad that you talked about a private university, because it's also about the interface between private and public universities and the investments that are needed, etc. So, yeah.
My question is to the Director for Tertiary. Yes. My name is Professor Ntwamensa. I would like to ask that when you decided to engage these two universities in helping our students assess science engineering, especially with engineering, did you talk to the Institution of Engineers? Because they will certify these students when they come out. Yeah.
Anyway.
Let me respond. Yes, I think what we are doing is a pre-engineering. So we are giving them some, let's say, tuition for them to assess a full engineering course at the university. Basically, these are students that have done the humanity at the senior high school. Some of them are visual students, some are business students, some are, non-science students. So we are giving them the pre-engineering program for them to assess the engineering program at the university. So when they are able to assess the engineering program, they would automatically be satisfied by the, yes.
Please elaborate a bit on this. Now that we are going to start learning differential equations, quantum mechanics.
Yeah, Prof, that is it. We are giving them, it's an access course. It's more of an access course they are taking in order to usher them into the main engineering program. Yes. It's a preparatory stage for them to get to the engineering program. Yes. So it's not that when they conclude the pre-engineering, they will be certificated at once. No. They will use that to get admission. In our universities, what happens is that if you are non-science students, nobody will admit you to undertake some of these programs, like computer engineering and medical engineering and all this. Nobody will allow you to undertake such programs. So we are giving them an access course to help them enroll into such programs, yes.
I'm sorry to continue.
No problem, Prof.
There are so many people who have done science at the SHS level, but did not get grades high enough for them to get into the engineering course. Why don't you concentrate on those people and give them that
The top up.
proper pre-science because they have the background already. If you then admit them, they will be better equipped to benefit from that and then go on to do the engineering. Why go to the humanities people who are virtually going to start as if they are now at JHS level?
I think,
These are more of a pilot program
but
that we've
it's not to
started.
put
and,
you on the spot.
Yes,
but
and amendments will be made
I
to
don't
it
mean,
as we make
I don't mean to
progress,
put
yes.
you on
Yeah,
the
but-
spot.
No problem at all.
but
Prof. I'm okay with it. Yes.
Clearly, that is why we need this platform.
Yes, I understand.
Where we
I
can
understand.
really think through. And Mr. Chair, before I yield to you, I was struck by in what Professor Damensa said about please sit down, about the issue of continuity, because this is apparent in many areas of our life, this zigzag, you do one thing and then you put it down and you go and start another thing without sometimes really concluding that this is not the way to go. So I hope that at least this project will create the platform for us to assess many of the different things that already exist and how to ensure that, yes, government will change, but the issues don't really go away, and that we will focus on those kinds of issues and challenges to make sure that we are using resources optimally. Thank you.
I just want to ask you to hold your horses.
That's fine.
Because if you're not careful, you will be saying things that you didn't prepare to come and say. So we have taken your views, because eventually those who apply, put in proposals to undertake these research projects, some of these questions will be added to what they're going to do. So they interrogate those questions. So I don't think you need to answer now. When they come to you in the ministry for interview, then you can go into more detail. Now, all the young people here, some of you are from the press, right? You don't have any questions, or you want us to finish from here because I have another meeting that has already started and I'm going to join, so you won't catch me to talk to you outside. So if you have any questions, you better ask the questions now. We promised we'll be through by 11. It's already about 5-6 minutes past 11, and some of you may be getting ready to go on to other activities and functions. All right. Yes, there's a gentleman in the back there.
Prof, good morning. My name is Vincent Dela Goka. Please, I want to find out, are there some plans in place to kind of engage the stakeholders or opinion leaders in this chain? Because in Ghana, if we talk about reform, especially in the education sector, it becomes a problem or complicated. In this direction, because maybe if you finish with these projects and then you come out with a policy document, and then you'd have to engage these people to kind of implement the policies. Are there plans in place to kind of engage them in this project? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think I talked about policy dialogues. Policy dialogues are processes of engagement of selected stakeholders. So not everybody might be interested in a particular topic, but we will, through knowledge of the sector, through scans, we know that if we're talking about financing higher education, there are some usual suspects, right? We've got the students, we've got the GET Fund, we've got the Vice Chancellor's Ghana, we've got the Parliamentary Select Committee, Ministry of Finance, Fair Wages, all of those kinds of stakeholders. So yes. So we are not going to finish before we say this is what we came up with. It is that continuous process. So those 7 policy dialogues, they target stakeholders continuously. And out of the deliberations, we come out with those policy briefs. So it's not, by the end of the project, we would have those results of the different engagements. We're not going to finish and come and say this is what we found. But it's, if you like, it's a co-production. Each of the dialogues will involve the stakeholders in the sector. So I think, Francis, how many people do we have? We already have targets for each of our engagements. So if it's 50 stakeholders, some of them will be coming, and it's not all Accra based. Some of them will be coming out of Accra to attend. Because we would have liked very much to have held some of those engagements outside Accra, but we have budget limitations. But if it is possible to do that, we will do it. Also because of our very centralized government systems, many of the stakeholders are based in Accra. So it is easier to bring other people to join them instead of spending money moving a lot of people out of Accra to those places. So it's deliberately built in. It's a constant process of engagement as we go along. Thank you.
And I think that usually at the central level, the ministry level, there's always a dissemination process. And Accra, Kumasi, Tamale, and so on are all involved. The one thing I want to stress is that these dialogues involve students also, and the press. Unfortunately, the press, they are usually interested in the opening ceremony. And once that is done, they are off. But it will be, some of you can specialize in these areas and be present right through, so you can report on and learn a little more. So when it comes to proper dissemination, you are in a position to help with the process.
Could I think you've just prompted me, because one of the outputs is also what we call op-eds, opinion editorials, so we will be expecting that fellows of the academy, people who have been involved in the project, will be encouraged to write, maybe a paragraph or 2 or a page for dissemination on some current issues. So the op-eds are also a significant output. And as you have said, it doesn't mean that it's only us. There's no reason why some media person hoping to get an award cannot decide that they want to focus on this area, and based on their participation in these dialogues, also write an op-ed which will be published, both online and physically. So there will be those op-eds which seek to share opinions and issues. So if there is a special day that is coming up, International Day of something, or let's say like happened recently with the Ministry of Education, a National Education Week, there could be an op-ed that highlights some of the issues that are coming up, and that can be published, And I know that when you work in the ministry, it's hard sometimes to put out your personal opinion, but it would be wonderful to have the Director of Tertiary Education write an op-ed on some technical issue, which will also seek to, in a very concise manner, explain to the public some of the issues in the sector. So thank you very much, Chair. I think that this op-ed is an important component.
All right, I think we have said enough for a launching ceremony. I just want to introduce one more person. I know he hasn't asked me to do so, but our very own, very, very senior person, Professor Akila Kwasoya, is here with us. I think we should know that he found time to join. Welcome, sir. So without further ado, I think it will be most inappropriate for us to leave here without a word from the president of the academy, Professor Samuel Sefa Dede.
Thank you very much, Professor Tego, and all of you who have gathered this morning to witness the launch of this very, very special project. I would like to say that on behalf of Council and Fellows of the Academy, we are all very excited about this opportunity for the Academy to trigger its convening power on a very critical national development area. There are many of such areas the Academy can provide leadership. And we believe that we are on the right path as an Academy to initiate these projects, execute them, and impact our society. And therefore, I would like to commend the project management team, the steering committee, the supporting staff from the Secretariat, that the Academy is expecting a good outcome, and we know we will have good outcomes of all the projects, activities that you have outlined. And we wish you well, and wish the Academy well. Thank you.
So please, quick announcement. For those who would want copies of the presentation, it's on the Academy's website. It will be shown on the screen. So you could go to the website and then download or read from the website. Thank you very much.
All right, so everybody is dismissed. Thank you very much.